Think about the ultimate nightmare for a software founder. You spend months coding, iterating, and testing. You finally push your product live, press publish, and wait for the users to roll in. But instead, you get absolute, deafening silence, zero response. When this happens, it is incredibly easy to blame what you built. But when a launch fizzles out, the product itself is rarely the problem. The problem is the frame. Most founders treat a software launch like a ribbon-cutting ceremony. They view it as a single, isolated day of announcement where they shout their existence into the void, hoping the internet is paying attention. To get traction, we have to look at the process entirely differently. A successful SaaS launch is actually a 90-day operation. It requires weeks of specific preparation, one incredibly loud day, and weeks of disciplined follow-through. Like a relay race, each phase hands off momentum. It engineers a massive spike of attention on day one, immediately transformed into a permanent growth curve. The first leg of this race is pre-launch, and it has a very specific job: building a warm room. A massive launch day spike doesn't happen organically. It requires fuel, and that fuel is a high-intent audience gathered weeks before you ever go live. Gathering that audience starts with a rigid rule. You have to define your ideal customer profile in exactly one sentence. If you can't fit your target customer into a single sentence, your message will be too broad to catch anyone's attention. Launching at everyone means reaching no one. By narrowing your focus, you can pinpoint exactly where those specific people hang out. That means you ignore the instinct to post everywhere, and instead dominate exactly 2 social platforms where your buyers are already active. Once you have their attention on those 2 platforms, you drive them to a single destination, a waitlist landing page. The goal here is controlled mystery. You give them just enough information to know the product is built specifically for them, leaving one intriguing question open to capture their email. Doing this groundwork completely changes the math of your launch. If you look at standard pre-launch benchmarks, cold traffic typically converts at 2 to 5%. But warm traffic, people who already know your value, converts at 6 to 12%. Building that warm room effectively doubles or triples your baseline community. You guarantee that when you finally push the button on launch day, you aren't shouting into an empty room. That brings us to launch day. Your waitlist transforms into the engine that powers your primary launch vehicle, usually a platform like Product Hunt. The biggest mistake founders make on launch day is relying on a single email to alert that waitlist. The math just doesn't support it. The average marketing email open rate is only 20.73%. Send one message and 4/5 of your audience won't see it. Fix this with a strict 3-send strategy: a warm-up note, a morning alert, and an evening last call. And while those emails are going out, you have a physical requirement: clear your calendar completely. Launch day is a customer conversation marathon. You need to be in the comments, answering questions within minutes, proving to early adopters that there is a real human behind the screen. When you combine that high-contact founder presence with an exclusive launch week discount, you give your waitlist a compelling reason to buy today instead of someday. That combination of urgency and community is exactly what triggers the mathematical spike in traffic. But here is the reality of a launch spike. It is built on borrowed attention, and it decays incredibly fast. Within 48 hours, that traffic will plummet. You must catch it. The first mechanism is a rigorous onboarding sequence. Every new sign-up needs to drop into a welcome flow designed to convert curiosity into active usage. Once they are actively using the product, you trigger the second mechanism, funneling users to review platforms like G2. This builds public proof while giving you a direct line to the specific features and fixes your users actually want to see next. Building that proof is critical. Right now, 51% of B2B software buyers begin product research using generative AI chatbots rather than traditional search engines. And when those AI assistants look for answers, they pull heavily from review platforms. This means traditional SEO is no longer enough to capture ongoing traffic. You have to start practicing GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, formatting your content and reviews so that AI assistants recommend you to future buyers. By optimizing your presence for AI and feeding those user insights directly back into product updates, you do something crucial. You take the temporary borrowed attention of launch day and convert it into the owned, compounding attention of a permanent growth curve. Because this system requires multiple moving parts, you need a way to test it. 2 weeks prior to your planned date, you must sit down and run a 45-minute launch readiness audit, checking the specific mechanics of your pre-launch, launch, and post-launch phases. There is a strict failure condition here. If you answer no to 3 questions in any single phase of the audit, you stop. You do not push through. You move the launch date. It might feel painful to delay, but the math is simple. Launching 2 weeks late to a primed audience always beats launching on time to absolute silence. This system grew a cybersecurity product from 0 to 2,000 verified users in its first year. Even with mistakes in the execution, the growth held steady because the underlying phases were solid. A successful launch should simply be the loudest day of a system that was already working before you pressed publish and keeps working long after. Build the system, and the day takes care of itself.